Welcome back to the channel. If you've been here before, welcome to the channel. If you're new, I have professional fighter Gabriel Varga here today. And so something I was thinking about was sparring. And so you do a lot of seminars, and then of course I met you at Myrtle Beach. You came to the YouTube meetup, and we did some sparring and stuff. And I got to spar you, and you destroyed me. But have you ever sparred with somebody at like a seminar or a session like that? And do you have the fear of losing to them, like the stigma of losing to a non-six-time world champion, maybe the purple belt or the brown belt, and they just all of a sudden just kind of have your number? Are you ever worried about that?
Not so much anymore that I've hit my goal, my accomplishments. I've always wanted to be a world champion, then
Okay.
to be a glory champion. I did those, so now I'm kind of like, you know what? I've done what I need to do, but I understand exactly what you're saying, because as I was climbing and I was unsure of my ranking in the world, if somebody beat me in the gym, like beat me, they're not really beating you because there's so many other scenarios to take into account, how people perform under pressure, this and that.
Right.
I'd take it a little bit personally. I'd be like, man, I blew it today. Somebody had my number. What happened? And they've only been training for half the amount of time that I've been training. And it hurts the ego a little bit.
Does.
But I've wrapped my head around now that you have to remember that in the gym is not a real fight. And
Yes.
there are so many factors that come into play. Like I already mentioned, there's the stress. How well do people perform under stress when people are watching, the cameras are on you? How focused are you? There's so many other elements. And it doesn't necessarily mean the person's better than you. It just means that they're better in the gym. And there's a big difference between gym fighting and fighting in the ring. Your skill level in the gym is here. Your skill level when you fight, somewhere in here,
Right.
hopefully higher. But I know a lot of guys who have this crazy high skill level in the gym, and their skill level is terrible when they fight. You're like, what happened to this guy? So nowadays, I just try to basically go, if I'm at a seminar and somebody's doing a really good job against me, I just go, well, congratulations. And then I try and think about what mistakes I made,
Yeah.
and where I can improve.
I think, I don't know if it was Bruce Lee or if it was Guru Dan that said, okay, if you gave whatever percentage you give in training, in the real world, it's going to cut it in half, most likely. Like you said, when you step in the ring, if you were training at 100%, you're probably going to hit 50. So that's where I think the idea of like, hey, look, don't half-ass it in class, because if you're giving 50, 60% in your training, when something happens on the street, you're now at 25%. Like, do you want that odds of 25% versus maybe giving 110% in the class? And now at least I got a 50% chance or 55% chance. That's kind of sounds like what you're even saying, like once the lights come on and everything. So you mentioned, like someone like Conor McGregor or whatever having a certain skill set. And so prior to you jumping into competition, because I feel, based off of our meetup when we were in Myrtle Beach, like I can see that I've definitely neglected my kickboxing, focused more on my grappling for like the last 4 or 5 years. What percentage or what level do you feel it came from, okay, I spar in class, to how much did you gain by going into kickboxing tournaments? Because I feel there's a huge gap of, I spar good in the dojo, and all of a sudden and even if it doesn't have to be like the world champion level, but as soon as you have to go against a tournament, a competition, it helps you realize, like you said, it's not about big movements. It might be just, I know it's that far and I know I cannot get clocked and then I can fire back. So what did you see from that, from your own experience, and what kind of percentage gains do you feel like fighting in karate combat has helped your figuring out range and gauge, and I can kick you now and da-da-da?
So first of all, you were talking about before, whether it was Bruce Lee or somebody else saying like you're going to perform at 50%. That would probably even be a generous amount for somebody on their first fight.
Got it, yeah.
But if you start at like 25% and then you build up to 50 within your first 10 fights, and then you kind of build up.
And you're talking 10 fights, not a couple. He just said in your next 10 fights.
10 fights, I think that my skill level kind of felt like it hit 70% of what I was capable of around the 10th to 12th fight.
Okay.
So then I started to be like, okay, I'm performing a little closer to who I am. But still, you have to remember that you're just trying to get to like maybe 80 or 90% of who you are.
Yes.
Even for the high level guys, like everybody that you see in the UFC, everybody who's a world champion, they're still not performing at their best level. all the tournaments that you can go into, all the fights that you have, you constantly get better, you gain experience. It doesn't matter if it's a ring fight, you fight in the cage, you go to your local tournament where you fight 2 or 3 times,
Right.
just on a flat mat. All of that built me up so much. And by the time I had my first ring fight, I'd already had basically probably 5 or 6 years of competing as a kid in point fighting, and then probably another 5 or 6 years competing in continuous kickboxing, pretty
Okay.
full contact, but no head punches. All of that, and I was still terrified going into my first fight, and I still didn't perform the way I wanted. So imagine how bad I would have been
Right.
in my
Your first time out. Yeah.
first time if I just went from, okay, I trained for 6 months and I'm fighting. And that's why I always tell people, like, take your time. Don't rush your first fight, because you might think in the gym, like, oh, I'm doing a really good job, but you don't know how low your skill level is going to drop. And I've seen guys come out for fights, they do pretty well on their defense in the gym, and they just freeze. And they just get stiff jaw, stiff arms, and they get clocked way too hard because they haven't had that build up. So
Right.
you take the time, you build up gradually like I did, and you keep your brain safe.
Yeah.
This is the big thing, defense.
And you'd mentioned during the end of the seminar, you're like, yeah, I could go for a title fight for combat karate anytime, or karate combat anytime you want, but you decided to take a few fights, learn the rule set, like you said, fight smarter, not harder, basically. And if you do come in and you're like, okay, I got to experience, they're like, okay, here you go. And then let's say you do have that first time and just kind of like freeze. Well, that could also ruin your contract.
Yeah.
Because, well, you didn't perform very well. And then you're like, yeah, because it was my first time out. So I think your logic process, like, yeah, I fought several times here. I've added on. Now I'm ready. And then, you could defend your title a few times before your contract is up. And then I can renegotiate and get AK more money, I guess, or whatever, or
Exactly.
however that all works.
Most people's goal is to get somewhere, right? We don't take fights just to fight.
Yeah.
I want to win a title, a state title, or I want to win a national title. You have something. The more wins you rack up versus losses, the faster you'll get there.
Correct.
So we might as well get there as fast as possible. So same idea for me in karate combat. Right now, I'm just going, I could, like, most people want to get there as quick as they can.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm going, I've done what I need to do. So it's okay for me to take some time, slow down, get there after 3 or 4
Enjoy the
months.
ride.
But initially, when I was in the early stages of my career, I'm like, give me the hardest fighters,
Yeah.
so I can get to the top as fast as possible, not recognizing that is potentially putting me at more risk of concussions. Maybe I'm not ready for those fighters, and then it knocks you back.
Mhm.
You lose a fight, and then you have to win 2 more fights to get back to a title
Mhm.
shot. So just slowing the pace down sometimes and going, you know what, we're not taking what you're going to call easy fights, because all fights are hard. You got to treat them like they're all
Right.
very hard. But taking a couple of fights where you're like, this is an experience building fight. And it doesn't always need to be the hardest, baddest guy to climb the ranks. You can slow it down and just be like, you know what, experience is important, so that when I do get to that title shot in karate combat, I know I'm the best version of myself.
Makes sense.
Doing it on the first fight, how would I be the best version? Because I don't know this new arena that I'm in. There's a whole new element. There's a whole new rule set. Everything changes. So just taking a beat once in a while is smart.
How big is that ring compared to like these are 3.3 feet. So 3, 6, 9, this is 12 by 12.
Pretty comparable to this space right here, actually.
To the whole room?
Yeah, I would say kind of the pit would start on the black mats.
Yeah.
So there's a decent amount of travel space. Like when somebody starts running, it's probably a little smaller.
Wow.
But it's much bigger than your average ring.
Like a UFC ring isn't nowhere near.
UFC rings are pretty big.
Really?
I think those are 30 feet across. I might be wrong, but they do have smaller ones, but they're big ones that they have.
Gotcha.
30. So it's pretty comparable to those. I think a normal ring is about 20 by 20. So a karate combat pit is quite a bit bigger.
Okay.
Gives more running room,
Space.
for athletes, more space. A little harder to corner people, which for me isn't ideal. So again, the learning experience. If somebody wants to run from me, I've got to know how am I going to corner them in this new big arena that I have.
What would be one mistake you felt you made, like doing all this training and prepping? Like, hey, I wish I would have never made that, or I mean, you can give me a couple, but I was just thinking maybe one that sticks out.
Yeah, I mean, from the first fight, I learned very quickly that I got to focus more on the ground, because I got a hip throw, got taken down, got punched a couple of times for that. So for the last one, I went, okay, I got to learn to base out a little bit more. I got to get a little bit better at the ground and pound situation from the first one. When I got him down, I didn't really know what to do. In the last fight, I made the adjustments, the improvements. Yeah, I mean that's the big thing for me. Just getting that comfort level on what to do when the guy hits the ground.
Hmm.
How do I take advantage of it instead of just telling him, "I'll get back up and we'll go
Right.
back to striking." So for the first fight, that was the big thing. For the last one, it's basically how do I deal with these karate guys
Yeah.
who they don't want to engage. They don't want to punch with me. They don't want to box. So for the next fight, I've got to continue to work on that because for the last one, the guy was very bouncy. It made it fairly difficult when somebody doesn't want to box. How do I get in and force this guy to exchange with me when they're really wild and they throw
Cool.
really
That makes
dramatic
sense.
shots? So yeah, it's all a building experience. Every time you just get a little bit closer to that ideal style to break down everybody else.
Nice. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. Again, if you like the video, go ahead, hit the like button. If you like stuff you see on our channel, you want to see more of Gabriel Varga, more of Ed Stahl, more of Icy Mike, more of myself, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It helps us out a big time. And then last but not least, hit that bell icon so you know when all the videos are coming out from all of us here at Martial Arts Limited. You guys are awesome. Stay safe. Keep your hands up. This is JD, and I'm out.